Ladies and gentlemen, the Boston Celtics look like a completely different team from when we last saw them. And as unfortunate as it is, ladies and gentlemen, that might not be the best thing for them at the moment. With that being said, let's talk about the moves they have done. Let's talk about why they may have done them. And also, let's talk about whether or not this will allow them to even try to compete for this next upcoming season. Whether or not that's even the goal for them at this point in time. But before we get any further, if you liked the video and you want to see more from me, drop a like, drop a follow, and or subscribe if you are new. And let me know if you believe the Boston Celtics are going to be, I guess, in a good enough position next season to compete with the trades that they have done. They are splitting up their roster, ladies and gentlemen. And I do feel a little bit bad for them. You know, with this whole second apron sort of stuff, no one wants to kind of go in there if they're not going to be competing. So it felt like Boston were kind of forced, in a sense, to split this team apart. And they have done so, whether it's willingly or unwillingly. They pulled the trigger on it. And ladies and gentlemen, they've done some business. I want to talk about the first trade that they did, and that was Jrue Holiday. They sent Jrue Holiday back to the Portland Trail Blazers, and in return, they got Anthony Simons and I think 2 second-round picks, if I'm not mistaken. That is an interesting deal, to say the least. As someone that is a massive fan of Jrue Holiday, I feel like he is a player that impacts winning championships. I mean, he did it with the Bucks. He did it with Boston as well. When he steps foot on the court, his two-way capabilities is enough to get teams over the line for championship success. And yes, Boston had Derek White. They had a lot of good two-way players, Jaylen Brown as well. But Jrue Holiday plays a massive part in that. And it's sad to see him go from the Boston Celtics, in all honesty, because he is a guy that can help win championships. And he moves to an environment in Portland where I feel like if it was me that made this deal as a Portland Trailblazers GM, I leave more questions than answers. But at the same time, if I'm doing a deal like this, I can't see another world where Jrue Holiday gets traded away from Portland again. The first time he got traded to Portland, Portland traded him to the Celtics. I can't see how this happens again, in all honesty. I can't see Jrue Holiday going to a different circumstance, and I do see him staying with the Portland Trailblazers this season, which is very bizarre. But at the same time, it's just weird that he went back to the place he got traded to. It's crazy. And for the Celtics, in this situation, Anthony Simons is a decent player. I kind of see him more of a shooting guard than a point guard, but someone that could probably play a diverse role, so he fits the Celtics in that sense. Derek White is similar. He plays point guard, but can also be the shooting guard. It could kind of be a multi-guard system there for Boston, and it's a decent young guy to kind of have on the team. There are reports that the Boston Celtics will be looking to shop Anthony Simons, so this could be another play for Boston where they get a player to try to trade him for a bigger player. Boston are known to do this at the end of the day. They got rid of Malcolm Brogdon to go and they had one season of Malcolm Brogdon, then they got rid of him to get a Jrue Holiday. So they've done this before. They traded a whole bunch of guys to get Kristaps Porzingis. So they've done this before. I'm not surprised if they go ahead and do it again. They are known for moving and shifting things around, and I think this is going to be another step for them doing so. But that's not all the business they did, ladies and gentlemen. They did trade the big man that I just mentioned, Kristaps Porzingis, and this one is interesting to say the least. So they traded Kristaps Porzingis to the Atlanta Hawks for George Niang and a second-round pick. Now, on the grand scheme of things, if I'm looking at the quality of players in which the Hawks and the Celtics did business, I would say the Celtics got fleeced in this situation. But the way that I probably am not looking about this is that Boston didn't deliver in the playoffs this season. Yes, Jason Tatum got hurt, but even prior to that, they were not having a good time in the NBA playoffs. Kristaps Porzingis, for many, was seen as an unplayable factor in that. I mean, I know he was hurt, and I think he had like respiratory issues in the playoffs, and that's why he didn't play many minutes. He came in and he came out straight away. They were trying to manage his minutes. Maybe that's an excuse you could throw their way. But if someone is unplayable in the playoffs, that is a big detriment to the team. And maybe they decided to get rid of that large contract that he was on in order to have room to maneuver different contracts. Maybe go and get another big man that's superstar quality. To sum it up, it's a bad move if that's the only move. And it's the same with the Jrue Holiday move. I think it's a bad move if that's the only move. But if they can somehow use what probably contract space they have now, maneuver the players that they got and traded, maybe even have to throw a big asset also there to get another superstar in. Well, that's what Boston does. They do that very, very well. So all I could say is Atlanta gets a player that's going to work very well with Trae Young, is going to work very well with the current team that they have. Kristaps Porzingis is not going to be their end-all be-all defensively, even though he can do that role. And the pick-and-pop game and the pick-and-roll game, it could be very interesting between those two. And I think Atlanta is kind of trying something in terms of going to the next level and competing, competing, not just playing tournament sort of stuff. They're trying to do something different in that regard, and by all means, I hope it works out for them. And I obviously think they got the better player in return, and they should be a better team next season. But with Boston, this can't be it. Like, I refuse to believe that's the team they're going to roll with. Yes, I know they don't have Jason Tatum. Yes, I know they're not probably going to be competing next season because I don't think they're going to have enough room to win a championship with the current roster they have. But this can't be it. You know, I think we're all forgetting that Jason Tatum's going to come back someday. And if that happens and you've completely broken this team apart to the point where it's unrecognizable and it's not a championship team, then why have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown still here? That's the question that Boston fans and the Boston organization need to ask themselves. So what they should be doing is not necessarily tanking for next season. They should be setting the foundation upon Jason Tatum's return. So that's why I think they're not done. That's why I think they're going to be doing different trades to get big prospects back into their organization. Yes, it will look different, but it will look different to the point where it's still seen as a team that can compete when Jason Tatum comes back. So all the reports about Jaylen Brown leaving and stuff like that, I don't see happening. All the reports that suggest that Boston are going to be tanking for next season, I don't see happening. I think personally, this is the steps for them setting their foundation for the next team that they can roll with for a championship. It's very similar to the Lakers. The Lakers do the same things because they're massive organizations and they're very popular organizations and players want to play for those teams. Trades like that, the Lakers can kind of make a championship team purely on free agency and trades. Boston can do the same. They're two teams that have the most history in the NBA and it plays a factor. It really, really does. So we'll see how this goes for Boston. I'm intrigued about the next steps that they can take, but they look completely different now. Right now, I would be worried, but all it takes is one big move, one more move, and things can go right back to Boston are a threat again. We'll see if that is the case. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay tuned for more. Take care, and peace.